Madame la directrice du bureau sous-régional pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest de la CEA, chers participants, représentants des médias du réseau des journalistes économiques pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest et ceux des autres sous-régions de l'Afrique, chers collègues de la communication de la CEA, mesdames, messieurs, distingués invités. Permettez-moi tout d'abord de vous remercier d'avoir accepté de participer à ce point de presse sur les résultats clés du bureau sous-régional pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest de la CEA, plus particulièrement sur l'autonomisation des femmes et des jeunes. Comme vous le savez, donc, à travers ce point de presse, le bureau sous-régional pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest de la CEA vise à informer davantage les journalistes sur son travail, ses outils d'intervention au pays et d'appui aux pays et aux commissions économiques régionales. Chers participants, mesdames, messieurs, donc, le déroulé de ce point de presse prévoit d'abord une introduction qui sera faite par la directrice du bureau sous-régional pour l'Afrique de l'Est de la CEA, Madame Ngone Diop. Ensuite, la parole sera donnée aux journalistes pour poser leurs questions. Et cette session sera modérée par mon collègue Ernest Kicho, qui est ici présent avec nous. Et donc, Madame, à présent, vous avez la parole pour votre introduction. Merci.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup, Tahirou. Merci encore une fois à nos collègues et partenaires de la communication, ici présents, les représentés Ernest. Et je voudrais également fort bien remercier les journalistes pour leur temps, pour leur intérêt, pour leur engagement. Je ne sais pas si ça va se faire en anglais, en français, comme vous voulez. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez qu'on fasse? Je fais l'intervention en anglais, en français?
Il y a l'interprétation simultanée, donc ça dépend de vous.
Oui. No, thank you so much. Maybe I will do both. I can speak maybe in the first part in English, making the introduction, and then the engagement can be either in French, in English, depending on your question and how you want it. So I first and foremost would like to thank you so much for your time. And indeed, if you reach out to us through our communication department, which is doing very, very good work, and I would like to thank them again here and thank Ernest and his team, is because you really are interested in what we are doing at ECA. And here at the sub-regional office, the ECA West Africa office. So I'm delighted to be engaging with you today on issues very important to us, namely, how we are supporting our member state to addressing the issues of youth empowerment and women's empowerment. And more importantly, in doing so, what kind of result we have achieved? Are we contributing toward really empowering the youth and women who are the backbone of Africa development? I would like to start by saying ECA Sub-Regional Office for West Africa is one of the 5 sub-regional offices. We are based in Niamey, as you may know, in Niger, and we are actually covering 15 countries from here. Our main mandate is to support our member states, the 15 African countries, West African countries, to accelerate, hastening the inclusive, sustainable development, leaving no one behind. In doing so, we try actually to address 2 mutually reinforcing objective or goal, namely our area of specialization, which is to support, invest in demographic dynamic for development, supporting member states to harnessing the demographic dividend, and then to also support the acceleration of regional integration in West Africa. Those are the 2 components of our work, very huge, very important, but indeed very mutually reinforcing. And to do so, our office also mirrors ECA strategic, of course, direction and ECA articulation of its work, mainly the 3 core functions. Function number 1 is everything that has to do with the think tank, and the function number 2 is the convening power that we have and of course, the operationalization. So supporting member states to achieving the sustainable development agenda and to be able really to responding to the whole issues that we'll be talking about. We have been doing so through the 3-4 function, and I'll be delighted to take you through some of them, of course, moving forward. The other thing which I wanted to say is we're in a context which is quite a very difficult context, and our work has been able to tackling the structural issues that are inherent in the development trajectory of our member state. But in doing so, we also have been trying as much as possible to responding to the emerging issues. So doing so is critical to ensuring that our member state can be supported duly and our work can fit for purpose. So thank you for the interest and happy to be engaging with you to going through some of the silent achievement and of course impact, or let me say result, impact in supporting member state addressing the issues. Over.
Ok. Merci beaucoup, madame la directrice. Donc, à présent, nous allons passer la parole aux différents journalistes. Donc, la parole à celui qui veut la prendre pour poser ces questions. Merci. Alors, chers partenaires, la parole est à celui qui veut la prendre pour poser ces questions.
Whilst waiting for fellow colleagues to come in with questions, if any, if I may, Madam Director, ask one question, something that I know that you have led, especially in West Africa, and that stands out, you know, it counts really high amongst the work the ECA is doing, is your work with connecting women entrepreneurs in West Africa. So I don't know if you could kind of expand a little more on that so that, you know, the members of the press get a sense of what exactly we're talking about when we're doing, it's not just a talk, but that you're actually doing the things we're talking about.
Thank you, dear colleague Ernest. I think it's extremely important to also put it in context. In trying to support and respond to that very critical challenge, which is responding to women's empowerment, we actually fit it and conceptualize it in a quite wide paradigm and dynamics, which is a dynamic that's saying our key challenge in West Africa is a kind of demographic challenge, not because demography per se is a challenge, but because of the structure of the population. And the structure of the population can be a potential for development, economic transformation, or the other way around. So what is the structure we found in our study? And we all know it in the updated statistic give us suggests that West Africa has 400 million of population as of 2021. This is youth. The majority of the population are women and young people. And we actually represent 30% of Africa population and 5% of the world population. If you look at why I'm saying it's important to addressing the structure, women population actually is 50% of the population. And you take 25–30% of youth and you have the key component of the population. That actually comes with challenges. And the challenges are what? Those very women, they don't have access to economic opportunities compared to men. But it's not only women, the youth as well do not have access to real economic opportunities. So our idea was to say, based on the standpoint that to really unlock the potential of the West Africa, we need to equip the woman and the youth with what it takes to seize fully the opportunity and be able to be part and parcel of the economic ecosystem. We come up with the idea of conceptualizing a program that brings together the demographic dimension and the economic dimension, the economic of demography, with a view to say, you need to have police responses, economic policy to be able to respond to that. From that standpoint, we actually use the CFTA. I'm sure you all are familiarized with the CFTA. CFTA is a master plan, is a blueprint to harnessing our potential. If used properly, we can invest in women's empowerment and we can invest in the youth empowerment within the business ecosystem to leapfrog and harness the potential of the latter. And based on those analyses, based on the data we have, then we conceptualize a program, number one, that starts with consultation to say, but where are the women? Where are the youth? And we use the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to dig into and get more insight into where they are, what they are doing, and what they can bring to support. That was the first step. We found there are many women, young men out there. They are doing very good job. But the economy of scale is not there. They are not connected to each other. They don't know what is going on in the bigger market. Simply put, they don't know the big picture. And the big picture, there are different and many opportunities within there. So we have to come up with the strategy to actually conceptualize a program that, number one, deepen our understanding of the business ecosystem of the youth and women entrepreneurs. Instead of saying they are vulnerable, they are facing this, we turn the narrative in a very positive way, conceptualizing using statistics that give us insight into which sector they are in, what are they doing, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities. That first step was done with African Union, during the pandemic, the consultation with the envoy, which is the office of the AU or AU president chairperson, and the commissioner. And we move forward to actually get the outcome, the recommendation endorsed by the STC in charge of youth and so on. That gives us impetus and momentum to turning the kind of policy recommendation into action, into solution, the imperative of bringing solution. The next step was now to come in and dig into the business ecosystem. We found there are many women in the different sectors, be it the agricultural value chain. Africa will be developed if we harness agriculture value chain. Africa will be developed if we understand what it takes to bring in all those actors at the center of what kind of policies we're putting into place and the responses, so to speak. So we found that many of them, they are in a way or another in the business ecosystem, in the value chain. For example, for agriculture, we found more than 1,000 women and more than, I think there were kind of 700 or something young entrepreneurs who are in the agriculture value chain, but in a very informal way, some of them. Some of them, they were like there, but not in a very sound way because of the lack of information, let's say, the ignorance of what is the market. We found that some of them are in the art. They were like 121, 24, those who registered, during the conversation in the art system. The others are in the kind of transforming the agriculture thing, and some of them, they were trying to invest into the meat processing, etc., chicken, whatever, and so on and so forth. Others were using the art to actually transform it into, the beauty product, and so on and so forth. But the very key element we found also that many of them, they didn't know that, you work, outside, or you knock the door in another country, you can see an enterprise, a young entrepreneur or woman entrepreneur that can be part of the chain, i.e. they can provide input, i.e. they can provide raw material. We found some of them will go to Brazil to get raw material. So our response was to analyze all of them, bring them together, and then respond to that. And we brought them together in Lagos, identifying the champion for each sector, but more importantly, identifying champion leader. What do we mean by champion leader? Champion leader means those who are savvy entrepreneurs in the given sector, whom we engage, who are available to supporting the woman entrepreneur in the same sector of the young entrepreneur. Long story short, that has led to launching what we call, after the business forum, the first West Africa, ECA West Africa Business Forum, that brought together physically in the room 574 and many more online because it was an hybrid. It led to the launching of the first ever ECA West Africa Business Linkages platform to responding to those issues, lack of information, connection, being able to know what is going on, access to the market in a very cost-effective way. In a nutshell, those are the kind of things we do to responding to the issue faced by the youth, faced by women in a very empowering way, giving them the knowledge, the know-how. Over.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't want to monopolize the floor. Checking with Tahiru if we've got any questions. Also, journalists who would like to drop a text in the chat box, go ahead and drop your questions there. If you'd like to take the floor, please do indicate and your mic will be unmuted for you to ask your question. So thanks very much indeed for highlighting the crucial role of women and youth as an essential part of Africa's population, but the world's population as well, and what you're doing to kind of empower them, so to speak. Now you've got gentlemen and ladies of the press. What would you tell them as they walk away from here? Because I'm listening as if I were in a newsroom. What's coming in my mind is, how does the ordinary citizen of my country, the youth and the ordinary woman, who might not necessarily have been part of that workshop you organized, are not necessarily aware of this platform that has been established, how do they benefit from it? How do they access it?
Excellent. Actually, we already have launched dissemination and outreach kind of program of activities. We've already have a database of many of them, and through them, we encourage them to actually inform others. So it's a kind of having a network, an ecosystem of maybe a small number, 1,000, and from there, continuing to attacking more. And right now, more are coming. The platform is functional and they are being registered. But more importantly, the journalists are key to actually supporting us amplify that platform, supporting us to disseminate the information. They have a key role to play in, informing young people, businesswomen, to knowing about the platform, to approach us, and it's accessible. It's actually very user-friendly. We'll also train them to be able to use it, and we gradually will be bringing the Chamber of Commerce. So all the different kind of countries will be informed gradually. We are doing campaign, but I want to insist in the very valuable and very acknowledged and valued role that the journalists will be playing for supporting us to do further, disseminating further.
Thank you very much. Over to our fellow colleagues of the press, if anyone has a question about this wonderful initiative on women and youth in West Africa, which clearly will be and should be replicated in other parts of the continent. If you have a question on that or any other area of the work of our office for West Africa, the director is now ready to answer any questions you might have. And I see some hands up. Maybe I start with who comes first on my screen. That's Bakri Geye. You have the floor, please. Unmute yourself and ask your question.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup pour votre intervention. Je ne sais pas si vous m'entendez bien.
Très bien, nous vous entendons très bien.
Donc, Bakary Gueye, je suis rédacteur en chef du site web Initiative News, Mauritanie. Donc, j'ai suivi avec beaucoup d'intérêt votre intervention sur ce que, en tout cas, votre bureau d'Afrique de l'Ouest fait sur cette question cruciale aujourd'hui de l'autonomisation des femmes, des jeunes, de ce qu'on appelle en gros le dividende démographique. Donc, vous avez parlé d'un programme, le programme en tout cas que vous, en tout cas au niveau de la région ouest africaine, vous mettez en œuvre, que vous avez déjà conçu. Et puis, je voudrais savoir vraiment sur le plan concret, est-ce que vous avez les moyens de votre politique? Parce qu'on sait que les défis sont énormes quand même pour autonomiser les femmes et puis intégrer les jeunes. On sait qu'il y a énormément de problèmes, surtout sur le plan de l'éducation, du secteur de l'éducation au niveau de certains pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest. Je voudrais savoir vraiment quels sont les moyens dont vous disposez pour pouvoir réellement aider ces pays-là à réussir l'intégration des hommes, l'autonomisation plutôt des femmes et puis l'intégration des jeunes. On sait qu'il y a beaucoup de projets, on voit beaucoup de projets dans ces pays sur cette question-là du dividende. Il y a notamment le grand projet Suède qui injecte beaucoup d'argent, mais en réalité, on ne voit pas les résultats sur le terrain. La Mauritanie fait partie de la région nord-africaine. Elle bénéficie pourtant de ce projet Suède qui injecte énormément d'argent, mais sur le terrain, franchement, on ne voit pas vraiment les résultats. Je voudrais savoir comment vous, en tout cas, vous essayez d'encadrer tout cela et est-ce que vous avez les moyens de réellement aider ces pays-là? Voilà, merci beaucoup.
OK, non, excellent. Je pense qu'il est une vérité.
Thank you. Gone, I was going to suggest maybe we take a set of 2 or 3 questions before we proceed to answering. In the chat box, I've got Brian Gugi from the Standard Media Group in Nairobi. His question is, are there any similar platforms to uplift the youth and women in East Africa? Your presentation focused on West Africa. So if there's no other question, I think we should proceed with that. No, there is Fatumata Marikeita. Let's make that a third question, and you can answer those. Fatumata, you've got the floor. If Fatumata is not ready to take the floor, Ngone, please do go ahead with the 2 questions you have already, and we'll come back to the next set. Thank you.
Voilà. Est-ce que je suis là? On me suit à présent?
On vous entend très bien.
Allez-y. Merci. Alors, je disais, je reprends. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Et merci à Madame la directrice pour sa brillante intervention tout à l'heure. Et comme elle a si bien dit, dans nos pays, les femmes et les jeunes représentent un peu plus de 50% de nos populations. En Guinée, en tout cas, nous sommes à près de 53% de la population, les femmes notamment. Mais malheureusement, comme vous pouvez le constater, nous n'avons pas, les femmes n'ont pas, Béatrice l'a rappelé tout de suite, et quand c'est en politique, elles ne sont utilisées que pendant les périodes de campagne par les leaders politiques. Beaucoup a été fait, c'est vrai, dans nos différents pays pour justement amener les femmes à être beaucoup plus dynamiques, à intervenir dans différents domaines, mais fort malheureusement, le constat, il reste toujours amer. Et à travers la CEA, l'initiative est très bonne. Est-ce qu'il y a en ce moment un partenariat entre l'institution onusienne et nos gouvernements pour justement essayer de changer cette tendance?
Over to you, Ngone.
OK, très bien, très rapidement. Merci beaucoup pour ces questions très importantes. Je voudrais d'abord très rapidement répondre à la première question qui est relative au fait qu'il y ait peut-être une plateforme similaire. Est-ce qu'il y en a ou est-ce qu'on a un plan? Pour l'instant, il n'y en a pas encore. au niveau de la CEA, mais nous voulons effectivement étendre cela à d'autres régions. C'est la raison pour laquelle la plateforme est ouverte à tout le monde. Et même pendant le forum scientifique qui a donné lieu à cette plateforme, nous avons invité aussi certains acteurs d'autres régions. Donc, c'est en plein et on va essayer d'y arriver. Une autre question très titillante, me semble-t-il, c'est vrai que quand on parle d'appuyer, renforcer le pouvoir des femmes, renforcer le pouvoir des jeunes, accélérer leur autonomisation économique, etc. C'est vrai qu'on pense que on n'en est pas encore là. C'est vrai que c'est un chemin parsemé d'embûches. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il y a énormément de choses, énormément de problématiques. Donc, la problématique et l'impératif de l'urgence, l'impératif de l'ambition, l'impératif de solution sont éminemment importants. Malgré tout ce qu'on a fait, a priori, la face cachée de l'iceberg, c'est qu'on peut se dire, mais on voit toujours des jeunes pauvres qui n'ont pas de travail. 57% par exemple, ou plus dans certaines régions. 87%, 90% sont dans le secteur informel. On voit beaucoup de jeunes qui ne sont pas à l'école, qui n'arrivent pas à accéder à certains niveaux d'éducation qui leur permettraient d'accéder à des opportunités économiques. Et ça, la situation a été aggravée par le Covid-19. Donc, il y a énormément de problématiques. Mais enfin, il ne faille pas dire et rejeter ou penser qu'il n'y ait pas de progrès. Il y en a eu. Je ne voudrais pas m'appesantir sur le programme Suède. Ça a été lancé par UNIFIE, un de nos partenaires clés. Le programme Suède a fait énormément et je veux vous orienter vers les rapports d'évaluation de ce programme. Vous allez voir que si on prend la baseline, là où le contexte de début du programme et le contexte de mise en œuvre du programme, vous allez vous apercevoir qu'il y a beaucoup qui ont été réalisés. Il y a énormément de résultats. Maintenant, les effets de ruissellement de ce programme doivent être renforcés par d'autres actions, d'actions qui puissent être durables, qui puissent être institutionnalisées. Et c'est dans cette perspective que la CIA, égard à son mandat, travaille, et je réponds à l'autre question, travaille avec les États. Notre raison d'être, ce sont les États. Nous les appuyons à pouvoir faire face à leurs problématiques de développement. Et en l'espèce, en ce qui concerne les femmes et les jeunes, notre réponse, comme je l'ai dit, c'est articuler autour d'un paradigme qui se veut un paradigme qui amène la connexion entre l'économie et la démographie. Ça veut dire quoi? Nos pays ont la responsabilité régalienne, les gouvernements, de répondre à cette structure démographique dont j'ai parlé. Une structure démographique articulée ou qui met en évidence la proportion de jeunes énorme. Et qui dit proportion de jeunes, qui dit taux de natalité de presque 5%, dit effectivement des demandes grandissantes, dit effectivement un déficit du cycle de vie, c'est-à-dire il y a des demandes sociales qui ne sont pas du tout satisfaites. Ça veut dire qu'il doit y avoir des réponses adéquates. Eh bien, nous, pour ce faire, nous travaillons avec les partenaires, en l'occurrence le PNUD, le FNIEP, nous travaillons avec aussi le Centre générationnel en économie générationnelle, le CREC, qui est à l'Université de Dakar, pour faire quoi? Premièrement, montrer aux États la situation, leur donner la situation concrète. Parce que quand on n'a pas la situation, quand on n'a pas les données, on ne peut pas planifier pour répondre aux défis inhérents à une telle ou telle situation. Ça veut dire quoi? Ça veut dire également leur donner des outils qui leur permettent, de par leur responsabilité en tant que gouvernement, de répondre au mieux à cette préoccupation-là. Tout ce qu'on fait s'inscrit dans cette dynamique, que ce soit la plateforme, que ce soit les différentes études, etc. Et là, je voudrais précisément donner une initiative, partager une initiative récente. Hormis et en relation avec cette plateforme, notre réponse est une réponse holistique. Répondre en prenant en compte et en utilisant les portes d'entrée que sont le commerce, en l'occurrence la ZLECAF, mais répondre également au niveau des politiques, parce que ce sont les politiques qui puissent contribuer à renverser la tendance. En l'occurrence, nous avons une initiative qui s'appelle « S'assurer que les dimensions démographiques soient inscrites et soient prises en compte dans le processus de budgétisation. Mais enfin, la budgétisation n'est pas seulement la partie visible de l'iceberg. La budgétisation prend tout le processus de la formulation des politiques. Ça veut dire quoi? Les 4 dimensions de la dividende démographique, ça veut dire quoi? Éducation, santé, emploi, c'est-à-dire emploi productif, pas seulement informel. Et ça veut dire également tout ce qui est gouvernance de cela. Ces 4-là doivent être prises en compte dans les politiques. Quand on dit politique, il y a la politique économique, il y a la politique macroéconomique. Comment on peut faire à ce que quand nos pays s'asseyent, quand les gouvernements, les planificateurs s'asseyent pour dire voilà où on veut amener les pays, voilà la politique économique, voilà la politique de l'éducation, qu'ils prennent en compte la proportion de l'éducation, la santé et attente d'emploi. De ça, on a un programme qui s'appelle la budgétisation sensible aux dividendes démographiques. Donc, vous avez vu, on a différentes composantes qui nous permettent au mieux d'appuyer nos pays. Mais in fine, la responsabilité incombe au pays. Et c'est pour ça qu'on essaye de faire la quoi? Plaidoyer. Plaidoyer pour qu'ils comprennent ce qu'on appelle en anglais, essayer d'avoir ce policy uptake. Plaidoyer pour qu'ils puissent dire, nous voulons faire des politiques, mais enfin, pendant longtemps, notre budget ne reflétait pas les priorités du moment, ne reflétait pas la structure de la population, ne reflétait pas les besoins immédiats à court terme, à long terme et à moyen terme qui nous permettent d'investir dans les jeunes, l'autonomisation des femmes, et qui nous permet de manière holistique d'accélérer la transformation structurelle de nos pays. C'est surtout cohérent. C'est cette approche dynamique que nous apportons à nos pays. Donc, pour répondre à vous, notre collègue qui a posé cette question, oui, c'est pas suffisant. Avoir cette plateforme, c'est bien beau, mais il faudrait assortir cela avec des politiques, avec d'autres interventions, lesquelles sont vraiment inhérentes à l'État en tant que tel. Et je pense que nos pays sont en train de le faire. Nous allons continuer avec vous, mais vous avez encore un rôle. Je pense que ça va être mon leitmotiv. Votre rôle, c'est de documenter, disséminer, engager les gouvernants là-dedans. Et vous êtes des partenaires de facto. À vous.
Thank you very much. I think we have about 20 minutes to the end of the briefing. We do have a couple of questions in the chat box. One is from our dear friend from Afrimac magazine in Tunisia, who was asking the same question about when is this gonna, get across the continent. So you already have the answer to that. And then there's a question from Aboubakar Khaled. It says, bonjour, je suis Aboubakar Khaled, journaliste algérien. Est-ce que votre plateforme est lié aux partenaires de différents programmes publics à travers notamment les centres de formation publique, les chambres d'artisanat, mais aussi aux universités et autres institutions. All right, that's from Abu Bakr. But we also have Adama Wade, who raised his hand to ask a question. So Adama, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I have just a little question about the informal sector across Africa. Since we are telling that young women and youth are not access to the market, to information, to finance, how ECA can tackle these issues? Because to be concrete, we have to find a solution for informal sector, solution for women and youth who constitute 70% of our population. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very good question on access to finance for women and youth. So Ngone, over to you.
Excellent question. I think you're very right. The informal section is a real economy. That's what I always used to say. The real economy is the informal section. Why? Because we know 97.5%, depending on countries, of the young people who actually are graduated or are not graduates, some of them actually have even 5 years of education, etc. They are in the informal sector, which use. But what does it mean? it means they don't have access to social protection. They don't have access to the knowledge, the life, long learning. They don't have it. All of which will have the implication on access to finance. The informal sector has informal finance. We call it informal finance because they come together to actually try to address their own issues. Tontine, we call it Tontine. In West Africa, there are many Tontine, which is quite good. But the downside is that Tontine doesn't generate enough sufficient finance to actually responding to the need for, growth, the need for access to market, and the sustainability need. So what we are trying to do also here, and it is very good you asking this question, because last year when we present, all our good work, our statutory committee, which is our eyes, asked us a very simple question. This is extremely good, but we would like you to dig into the informal sector. We would like you to come back to us next year and engage us as policymakers in the informal sector. What does it take for governments to really invest in the informal sector? We shouldn't have this kind of, stereotype, because you see many having a small ball, having things. But if you analyze them, and right now we are analyzing them, we'll be inviting you soon and share the study. When you analyze them, you can see the economic ecosystem actually is by essence the informal sector. Because if you have 70% in some country, you have 95% in some country of young people in the informal sector. So what is left? What is left is very tiny in the productive and formal sector. So understanding, number one, their competency, most of them, they don't have really what we call formal competency. They actually learn by doing, or they do trading. But is it possible, depending on the country comparative advantage, like here in Niger, within the CFTA, we define the comparative advantage in the area of priority for countries. Niger, we know Niger is rich in terms of the agriculture, in terms of, the cattle, etc., etc. You found the young people who try in the artisanal, sector to transform the skin of the animals, for example. How do we make sure that that knowledge, which has to be shaped, can be supported? They are microfinance. But what we found in many countries in our region, they have different structure. We don't connect the dot. We don't connect the dot with the data, the analysis, the information that provides us insight into what does it take to transform the informal sector. So what we are trying to do, and I'm responding to our response at ECA, is from that point of view and from that perspective, bearing in mind that the informal sector is a real economy. We are actually investing in first self-help member state to connect the dot. They all have CFTA. We are in advance compared to other regions, by the way, because we have all our countries, they have ratified apart from 2. And we have supported 9 national CFTA strategies. And we have a big project with ITFC and WTO to making them implement. So we have entry point we can actually use. In doing so, we connect the dot. Member state 1, you know the informal state, you don't know it. Here are the statistics. But from that statistic, what do you know? What do you want to do to transforming those information and using it as a policy kind of tool? And then bring it into your national development plan, because all of them, they have national plan. That will help to have a very dedicated, holistic, comprehensive, and sustainable policy intervention. Because by all means, and infinite, is it about political economy? Member states are responding to that. And very right now, and I'm going to end to that, as you know, African Union will be leading the summit, and please prepare for that, which is the Industrialization and Transformation Summit. Hosted by Niger, it will be in November. Right now, we're trying to move and push member states toward that by asking 3 policy questions. Number 1, do you know your situation, the ecosystem, your economic ecosystem? Don't tell me only about your formal economic situation and context. You have the most important one, which is the informal sector. What does it mean What does it take to bring them on board, to understanding, to listening to their voice, and dig into where are they? What are they doing? How can we scale up their knowledge? How can we scale up their agency, their know-how, through what? That's the number one. And if you ask such a question, you really see response within member states, because they are all committed to responding to the challenge, and they have plenty of structure. They have plenty of policy, again and again, bring them together in a coherent, consistent, substantive manner. That's the missing link. We are there to push for that. ECA, African Union, UNIDO. Actually, I was supposed to participate in the principal meeting. I have canceled mine to engage with you. Another thing is to say what? All this is not happening in an ex nihilo. No. We're doing the summit as a key platform to building on the momentum created with the launch of the CFTA. How can we come together and investigate that informal sector, the youth and the women who are there, those who are having on their head, or who are using a very artisanal or very practical thing to actually move their goods and services. And yet, at the same time, we are importing those goods and services. Something, a missing link has to be fixed. So those are the kind of issue we bring into bear by connecting the dot, understanding, analyzing, engaging to get that policy uptake for policy change, which you can, measure. So the metrics are out there. I think the question about do we will have the platform, expanded, élargi à l'Afrique du Nord. On a eu beaucoup de questions, beaucoup d'acteurs en Afrique de l'Ouest, toute l'Afrique nous ont dit, mais pourquoi seulement Afrique de l'Ouest? Well, ma réponse était que c'est vrai que la plateforme n'était pas venue juste faire une plateforme. Notre approche est toujours investir dans l'analyse, les études, avoir les données, faire des consultations, et puis à partir de là, amener tout le monde ensemble, engagé avec les différents acteurs, etc., etc. Et là, d'où est venue la rationalité et la justification. La plateforme répondait à une problématique. Eh bien, cette même problématique peut se trouver ailleurs. Notre objectif est d'engager les autres par le biais de nos bureaux, et nul doute que ça pourrait être élargi à d'autres régions. Nous y pensons, y compris en Afrique du Nord, Afrique de l'Est, and so on.
Thank you very much, Ngone. I think this will be the last set of questions. We've got one in the chat box from Temitope Ponle with the news agency of Nigeria. Says he'd like to find out how the ECA intends to ensure that policy commitments at national and regional levels are adhered to. And then we've got two hands. One is on the screen now. Babo Loki. And please do mute your microphone if you're not speaking. Sorry. Yes, please, Tairo, go ahead.
I said that there is another question before Temitope from Genzri Amiral, journalist from Tunisia.
Yes, I think that's a question she just just touched on. But if you want to go ahead and read that question out again, I think it had to do with replicating this model in Northern Africa.
Bonjour, je suis Genzri Amiral, journaliste tunisienne et correspondante du magazine panafricain Africa. Est-ce que cette initiative sera généralisée pour l'Afrique du Nord? Merci.
Right. Thank you. So let's have Baboloki. Please, you can go ahead. And right after you, there's Mike Hove to come in that order. Please, Babu, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Ernest, and good afternoon to all the colleagues here. My interest is actually on, today is actually the International Day of Democracy. And we've seen that across Africa, there is low level of participation by women and young people in politics. So my question is also, will be basically be supplementing the one that Ernest has just read about how does ECA, ensures to adherence at both African and national level what is the policy advice that we can give to our African countries in terms of, giving access of political leadership to young people and women to stand for political office? Babuluki Semel, and I'm a freelance, international freelance.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mike, you have the floor. Mike.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike from Voice of America. So my question really is pertaining, I guess, it also leads to what everybody's been asking of how do you replicate this model in different parts of the continent? But instead of replicating, is there a means whereby you could collaborate across the entire continent? So you don't have someone in Southern Africa doing their own thing, someone in West Africa doing their own thing, but we do something together as a continent to empower both women and youth.
Thank you very much. I think that's the last of the questions we had today. So I'm going over to you.
No, thank you very, very much. To my sister, à ma sœur de Tunisie, ou à mon frère de Tunisie, je voudrais juste dire que oui, et ça permet de répondre aux autres également. Nous y pensons, la demande est là, mais il va falloir qu'on se mette également dans un travail de recherche pertinent. Comme je dis, on ne l'a pas fait ex nihilo. Et puis collaborer avec nos bureaux pour pouvoir répondre à ça. C'est un impératif vraiment et je pense que c'est urgent. Essayer de faire de manière cohérente et harmonisée qu'on ait, and then I'm going to turn into English, and then so that we can have a very combined, harmonized way for ECA to responding to those challenges through this platform and ensuring that the platform, can be either replicated elsewhere or expanded, because by the way, it's African platform. We did it for West Africa because we cover West African countries, and we have, the most countries and more difficult with more issues are in West Africa. Actually, we have 15 and others have less, so we are the bigger region. So starting with us can also help to expand it, and we will really try to respond to that very quickly. I think there's a very other important one. And what I like with your question, colleagues and friends, is that your questions are very related. You can see one question is very related to another. So it helps to articulate the thing in a very kind of flow manner. And that one, I really like it. Coming to ensuring that the youth and women actually are represented at political level. I would say two things first. Number one, is the basic human right. Number two, it's fundamental to actually accelerating, hastening the development of our continent, our region. We already know the structure. If you have your more than 60% of the population made, by women and youth, unless they are involved into the political arena, the decision-making process, what kind of decision actually you're going to have, and what kind of decision you are defining. If you are defining it, you are taking them on behalf of the 70%, and they are not there. So having sit on the table is the condition sine qua non for our decision-making process to be of quality, inclusive, and of course, to be able to respond to the need of the population. And that population are the 70%, are young and teen. So why are we there? And what do we do? Number one, we do know our member states have ratified the regional and international normative framework when it comes to the human right participation. Be it, if we take the woman, the Beijing Platform for Action, if we take the youth also, we have all the international, and the last one with the roadmap of 2017 roadmap that AUC launched and member states adopted, which was articulated around harnessing demographic dividends through investing in the youth. Another thing which is critical is the Maputo Protocol, which brings to bear the key human rights of women, and one of them is, so why do we have that, the gap? Is because they are not implementing, forcefully. They are strides, and we have to celebrate. There are some strides. But the pace on the path of those, the process are very slow. So we need to do more. What we are facing is twofold. We're facing the, glass ceiling. It's still there. Glass ceiling when it comes to the young people. Young people, if you analyze, and we don't have time for that. I'm not a political, I'm economist, I'm not a political science person, but I read a lot what is going on in the political arena. They are actually come as an adding on. Adding on for what? To actually show that they are committed. I am not giving countries, but in many of our countries, they are committed to the youth because there's this, because this is. But if you dig into, and you take data, you will see there is a policy evaporation because the fundamental issue they have to bring to bear that can inform the inclusion of the youth from the beginning, right from in upstream down, is not there. Another thing is what? The glass cliff. And the glass cliff is what? You will bring women or men or young, or the young people, it can be young man or young woman, when they have problems to fix. And you know their knowledge, you identify those who are good, and you know when you place them there, they will be able to deal with the mess. So the glass cliff and the glass ceiling are so powerful and prevent the youth and prevent women from really, and I say it right. Right now, we have many countries in Africa who have more than the 30% of, earmark things for a woman representation. But either the quality representation is not there, either they are adding on, and in fine, it's not proper representation. When it comes to the youth, it's more dramatic. And what do we do as a response? And I'm going to finish there. Tackling the glass ceiling and the glass cliff. We can only do so by doing three things. Number one, revamping, reiterated. The issue of representation of the youth is not kind of they are given something. No, it's the intrinsic element of development. I'm saying intrinsic. It means it's a basic and fundamental human right that comes de facto by the fact of being a human being. And it is not negotiable. That's number one. Universal Declaration of Human, etc. The second one is instrumental. It's instrumental to development. It is instrumental to inclusive development. It is a very good pathway to anticipating and addressing insecurity and terrorism. Bad governance, lack of inclusive governance of women and youth have been very painful and have been having devastating impact on our region and on our continent. There are some studies on that. We can look at them. And there are some case studies and some stories about that. So in short, we can change the dynamic. We can change the narrative by bringing the more than 60 and 70% of the population, namely the young people and women, as part and parcel of the policy making process, the decision making. Don't do the policy for them, do it with them, get their voice, their agency for change, and we can do it. That's the Africa we want and the Africa we desire.
Thank you very much, Ngone. Unfortunately, time is too short. I know, and if I should let you all know that this is something she's passionate about when it has to do with women and youth. Ngone can talk from now till you never know when she'll stop. Very passionate about it and does a lot of fine work around women and youth. But thank you very much, Ngone, for a brilliant presentation and answering these questions. Thanks also, dear colleagues of the press, for showing up. I know, going from the questions you were asking, this was very West Africa focused initiative, but we did that deliberately because it's an initiative that is very much talked about within the UN circle, but also at the level of the Africa Union. So we thought maybe we should focus a little more on it so that you are aware of some of the things that are very much talked about at the level of the UN and the Africa Union. I'm going to hand over to my dear colleague Tahiru, who manages our communications for West Africa, to wrap up or to conclude. Meanwhile, again, the press briefing is a monthly rendezvous. We try to do it on the first week of every month when we can't, as was the case this time, because we really wanted our director for West Africa to talk to you guys this month. But her calendar was a bit you're really tight. So Ngone, again, thank you very much for availing yourself. And I'll hand over to Tahiru.
Before you hand over to Tahiru, I just want to say something, one thing. I would like really to, je vais le dire en français parce qu'il y a beaucoup de francophones. Permettez-moi de vous remercier fort bien pour votre disponibilité. Vous êtes notre boussole. Nous travaillons pour nos pays, mais par votre biais, nous pouvons avoir des feedbacks, des points de vue de est-ce que ce que nous sommes en train de faire est en train d'avoir les effets escomptés. So you are our compass, you are our partner, your view, constructive, critical view are so important to us because they help us to shape our intervention and indeed to achieving greater result and lasting impact for our country. So thank you so much for your interest and indeed for the partnership, much value. And Ernest, you're the best, you and Tahiru. Really, I appreciate you guys. And of course, glad because of you, we can reach out to our colleagues, to our friends, to our partners, the journalists. Thank you and over.
Thank you very much. You make our work a lot easier. Tahiru, please, in a few seconds so that we can let the gentlemen and ladies go back to the newsroom. Tahiru?
Bien,
Okay.
merci
Okay.
beaucoup. Merci vraiment à tous ces journalistes qui ont participé à ce point de presse. Merci à la directrice, Madame Ngone d'avoir accepté également de répondre aux questions. Et merci aussi à mes collègues Ernest Ki et Sophia Denkiou d'avoir vraiment initié ce point de presse. C'est une très bonne chose. Et comme l'a dit Madame Ngone Diop, vraiment les journalistes constituent vraiment notre boussole. Sans vous, vraiment les journalistes, on ne peut pas savoir ce que nous faisons. Et donc vraiment, vous êtes nos acteurs privilégiés. Et je profite de cette occasion pour informer ceux de l'Afrique du Nord et des autres bureaux sous-régionaux, des autres sous-régions, que ici en Afrique de l'Ouest, en fait, depuis 2017, nous avons mis en place un réseau de journalistes économiques pour l'Afrique de l'Ouest, et donc qui se trouve dans les 15 États que nous couvrons. Donc, ils constituent des points focaux pour nous, et vraiment, ce sont des journalistes avec lesquels nous travaillons régulièrement. Donc, vraiment, n'hésitez pas à nous demander des informations également. Nous pourrions les partager avec vous pour la dissémination. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine.
Have a nice day, everybody. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
You.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.